It's Thursday, November 21st, 2019. This is the Pro and Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Doing the show early today. I did the show early yesterday. Got some other obligations here. I'm doing some volunteer work for a great organization, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. They're doing some fundraising up here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I'm assisting with getting that done. I'm very happy and proud to do so. So the Pro and Con Show, encouraging us to be better citizens, to be more involved, to listen, at least listen, be open to at least listening to the opposing viewpoints, and especially what information they have, what actual data, the who, the what, the where, and the when. Stay away from, encouraging everyone to stay away from all of the opinion that's out there. These many of these information sites, they have no obligation whatsoever to tell you the truth, and they often have their own agenda, and they're streaming information, bias, opinion at you because they have their agenda, and they're trying to cause you to follow them because of their rhetoric. Okay, so this week, lots of stuff on the impeachment stuff, a lot of public hearings in Congress, and that rolls on. I wanted to focus because we still have these other issues that should stay at the forefront. We need to talk about them as communities, as neighbors, as society, as a species. And one of those topics is, of course, a very somber one, and that's the topic of abortion. And so this is the fourth in a fourth-part series where I'm talking about and trying to do my dead level best to summarize things fairly succinctly. Now, if we're actually going to debate this like we should on a national scale, we would take more time and have more expertise come in and talk about these different aspects. So I'm just trying to give kind of an overview of the different issues and why there's so much angst over it, and what we can do to try to eliminate that. So started out by talking about this thing around choice and defining human life and the potential of human life, and the fact that part of our nature as humans, we like to have sex. Okay, so that's going to happen, and the other part of it is women bear the brunt, at least currently. They are the ones that can get pregnant. Now, things would be totally different in our society if a male and a female, had a sexual encounter, and it was a coin flip, which one ended up with a baby. But that's not the way it works in our species. So we have something that we have to deal with here, and women have to deal with it much more than men, and that's one of the reasons why I can't emphasize enough. I'm talking about this topic, but women really need to be determining this, and the rest of us men, we can try to facilitate that. We can be supportive of it, but they really need to be focusing on what they think should be appropriate. Now, I have some ideas. So I'm not going to go through the balancing the factors things or the reasons for abortion. And yesterday we talked about the reasons against abortion, and I said it's a fairly short list. It's an important list, but fairly short. And the one thing, this little graphic that's on this slide, it basically says that in the first weeks, I don't know what 40 days ish. So what is that? 7 weeks, 6 weeks. In those time frame, we seem to be, at least based on the information I've read, our species is a little bit unusual in that you can have a conception, but it's not viable, and it's about only viable about 75 to 80% of the time, or no, 20 to 25% of the time. It's only viable about 20. So out of all the conceptions that occur, it's really only 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 that actually carry past the first 6-7 weeks kind of thing. And that's important to understand because, we value life. And at some point, even though a child is unborn, you can say, well, the probability is quite high that it is indeed, going to be a viable human. But at some early stage, that's much more uncertain. But today I wanted to talk about a potential solution. Now, I said yesterday that we have this polarized opinion on abortion, and we don't seem to be willing to come to some common ground. But if you think about really the true fundamentals of what both sides want, one side wants abortions to be extremely rare, and in fact, I would say both sides actually want abortions to be extremely rare. But one wants to basically say you can't ever have them, and the other side wants to say, well, I want the ability to have one, and it needs to be safe and affordable and available in case that's a choice I want to make. So what I'm proposing is, because there's another fact that's also kind of tied, it's a parallel fact, and that is that in the United States, we actually, our rate of successful births and stuff like that, and pregnancies is actually quite low, given the wealth of our nation. In other words, the healthiness or the health of mothers and newborns is actually dramatically worse than several countries in Europe, for example. And so we have this issue where we're not really taking care of ourselves before and during pregnancy, and immediately afterward, as well as we should be. So let's step back and say, okay, how do we fix all this? How could we have a place where everyone would at least be amenable to going forward together? So instead of standing on opposite sides of the street throwing bricks at each other, we could step to the center of the street and say, okay, I think we can make this work. And what I'm saying is that we should make abortions safe. They should be affordable. They should be legal, and they should be rare. And as far as making the choice, how do we do that? Well, what I'm suggesting is then, rather than have this horrific thing for women where they have to make the choice of like having an abortion or not, and that's kind of at the end of the spectrum. Why not do a lot more around this whole issue and take care of lots of things, including our general newborn health and stuff like that at the same time? So what I'm suggesting is that the country should adopt a comprehensive approach to pregnancy and pre-pregnancy care and pregnancy and post-pregnancy care. And so what does that mean? Well, one thing that for sure is one of the choices that women should be allowed to make is that they would be, have whatever birth control methods they want. And that should be, extremely affordable. Now that also, and on a global scale, that also ties into another issue that we have with our species is it continues to grow, and there's almost 8 billion of us, and that's way too many. Okay, we've got to turn the tide. We've got to prevent a lot of pregnancies around the world because our population is just growing. It has to stop. This planet cannot support 20 billion, 80 billion, 100 billion people. It can't do it. It really, I've read some papers and stuff like that. It really is in the 2 to 4 billion range if people are going to live with some kind of level of average, or in America, what we consider kind of a reasonable home and food and all those kinds of things. The planet can only support like 2 to 4 billion in those kinds of terms, and so we've got to reverse this, right? We've got to stop all the pregnancies and reverse the increase in population. So we have subsidized common birth control methods and education, okay? And this is, like, again, a comprehensive program, so all men too. And we would also talk about having two different birth control methods in place. In case one fails, there'd be the backup. And again, for people who didn't want to be pregnant, afford them multiple layers, multiple options, and multiple layers, and all very affordable and free. In fact, if they want to apply for free, that should be a possibility. And then the other thing is we should be subsidizing pregnancy tests, so women can, take a test once a week or once every other week or something like that, and by virtue of doing that, if they can determine, early on, much earlier than they might otherwise determine if they're actually pregnant. And if they are pregnant, then there's this whole program of choices and support that would be provided for them by us, by the rest of us, by the country, okay? And so the next step is the pregnancy care. So subsidized pregnancy care, including adoption programs. So this is the thing where, I'm pregnant right away, even though it's still 7 months away, there would be this commitment by the rest of us to, hey, there's all these opportunities for you to have the baby just for another 7 months or something, and no problem. Someone will adopt it and raise it for you. So it takes away some of the tremendous burden that a woman might feel, because if they are pregnant and they carry the child to term, they're responsible for the next 18 years. I mean, think about that. I know for men, again, there just isn't an analogy. I'm really struggling with it, but hopefully at least some number of us can be compassionate for what that means. And then also there is the potential for day after pills, basically, and abortions in the first handful of weeks. Again, because the whole viability of a egg that has been conceived with a sperm in the very first days is really in question. And so, and again, ongoing education kinds of things, and then the general rules would be that abortions after that first handful of weeks would generally not be allowed unless there was some other extenuating circumstances, like as a result of rape or incest, or there's some kind of severe birth defect kind of thing. And then the post-pregnancy care, you would have this adoption program. So if you didn't want the child, it's not your responsibility. Okay, that will be taken care of. And if you do want the child, there would still be like a tremendous amount of support in this program to make sure that you're being healthy and eating good meals and getting the right medical support and so on. So you think about what I'm saying is I'm saying you can have choice. You can have a lot of choices, but the last choice generally would be to abort a child, and especially abort a child late or later in the pregnancy. And to me, this feels like a good compromise. So legal, affordable, available, and rare. And this is, to me, regardless of your viewpoint on the abortion issue, it would seem like something like this. And again, I'm proposing this, and it's just a straw man kind of thing. But I'm hoping that it can cause people to step away from their loggerhead positions and step to the center of the street and say, yes, let's talk about how we make them legal, available, affordable, and rare. Okay? So for the Pro and Con Show, my name is Michael James Ott, and until the next show, which is tomorrow, we'll probably talk about the impeachment a little bit, because get kind of caught up on what's going on this week. Until the next show, bye for now.